Good morning, and welcome to the June 7th meeting of the Solon Board of Education. Mr. Patton, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Heckman.
Here.
Mrs. Clavin.
Here.
Mr. Patton.
Here.
Mrs. Moses.
Here. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is our first opportunity for public comment. In accordance with Board Policy 0169, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during this meeting. Each person addressing the board will give his or her name and address and will be allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person will speak twice until all who desire to speak have had an opportunity to do so. Individuals desiring more than one should follow the procedure to the board to be placed on the regular agenda. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation will be permitted at each meeting. Just as a reminder to our audience, board members do receive and review the agenda and the accompanying explanation during the week prior to the Monday board meeting. Those who wish to speak can orderly fashion step to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Actually, can I bring my computer?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. Could you take off your Fred? Could you take off your mask?
You can.
Yeah,
No, that's okay.
if she wants to.
You can,
Blow it off on here.
Feel free to
you know,
you can take your
you
mask
feel free to take off your mask too when you're giving your
speak.
speech.
Members of the school board, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Joelle Brake, and I reside at 36760 Valley Forge Drive. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair for the Parkside Elementary PTA. My husband and I have one child at Parkside and another entering the Solon Middle School. And I'm here today to urge the board to support DEI and CRT programs in our schools. We moved to Solon just 4 years ago, downsizing from our previous home, but upgrading to not just a school district with high rankings, but a school system within a diverse community. Yes, Solon has residents from all around the globe. Yes, Solon has a variety of religions, races, colors, and cultures. And yes, we check the box of a diverse community. We also have students, parents, and even school staff who don't understand the why behind student resource groups like African American Culture Club, Asian Culture Club, and the Jewish Student Union, to name a few. Parents and perhaps their children who believe that talking about race and what makes us different just furthers a divide. And the data just simply does not support this belief. After all, programs on anti-bullying don't further the divide between bullies and those being bullied, but they may help someone realize that their behavior was considered bullying and may make them think twice about their actions in the future. As a certified DEI professional who has worked and consulted in this space for many years, I find value in normalizing DEI concepts in our schools. Without it, people tend to navigate toward colorblindness at best. There is very little value in colorblindness, but there is an abundance of value in being seen and heard. CRT programs will not shame or take away anything from students, but CRT programs will enrich their life experience and overall well-roundedness of their education. There are age-appropriate approaches to apply DEI concepts to our curriculum, where all will benefit, parents, students, and teachers. Incorporating CRT concepts will be yet another competitive advantage for our award-winning school district. In Solon, we boast diversity as our strength. Diversity can only be our strength if we choose to leverage it. We are more than a community of various races and cultures. In adding CRT to our curriculum, we can showcase how we've embraced and capitalized off Solon's demographics. Yes, talking about race can be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be, and it doesn't have to be. The opportunity to normalize these conversations. This is our opportunity to normalize these conversations. This is Solon's opportunity to lead by example. We are Solon strong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That was exactly 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
Just for the record,
yeah.
I'll give you a fist when you have one left.
Okay, I was gonna put a timer
Is it
on.
a 2, a fist? I don't remember. Speech and debate lingo.
No worries, I got it. All right, so my name is Sonia Patel, and I live at 6575 Dorset Lane. And aside from being a longtime Solon resident, I'm a K through 12 Solon alum, and I serve as the Roxbury Diversity and Belonging Committee Chair. I'm also a former elementary school teacher, and I run a nonprofit here in Cleveland. So regardless of what city I lived in during college and my young adult life, I've always considered Solon my home and have always been proud of the community that we have. Growing up as one of the few Indian Americans in the district during the mid-'80s, diversity wasn't something I saw often in my classroom. But as I transitioned to middle school and high school and the community grew, the diversity also did. I loved seeing and connecting with other students of color and being able to share my roots with my classmates. It wasn't always perfect, and I still remember instances when I was teased about our food, dress, or other cultural differences. However, the district adapted to the changing environment and made sure that we all had a safe space to express ourselves and were given opportunities to celebrate our diversity. I started feeling pride in my culture and a sense of belonging into the community I called home. When it was time for our young family to find our forever home, there was no question about choosing Solon. While the academics are comparable to none, we chose this community for its diversity, acceptance, and sense of belonging. Solon schools have always made me feel like I belonged as a child, and now we must continue meeting the needs of our children based on the changes in society and our community. Our role as adults is to provide a safe space for positive discussion for all students. I wholeheartedly believe that our community, schools, and most importantly, our students will be better thanks to the activities of the diversity and inclusion committees at each school. The work we are doing is invaluable to help build a more trusting and committed community. I know at the elementary school level, our mission is to create awareness and celebrate the diversity of our school community. We do this by sharing information about different cultures, celebrate awareness months, and include resources for families to explore on their own. The families and students have positively responded to our efforts thus far, and we are excited to continue our work for many years to come. This is not cancel culture, and it's not a divisive agenda. We are preparing our students academically to be global citizens. Having empathy, learning acceptance, diversity, and inclusion are all also parts of being a productive global citizen. Conversations about diversity, inclusion, and equity are happening in various formats, so why not give our students a safe space to learn, explore, and flourish? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I am Michelle Shane, and I live at 37177 Cherry Bank Drive in Solon. And I'm just going to give you a little background. I am the chair of the Solon High School PTA DEI committee. I am certified in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University. And I felt it was important to give you some background on the work that we have done the last couple of years. And I can tell you that the committee looks forward to continuing this important work next year. Approximately 2 years ago, Solon High School Administration and the Solon High School PTA began working collaboratively to explore how to address the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our first step was to survey the high school students to gauge the climate and to listen to what our student body had to say about the culture at SHS. After compiling the data, a committee consisting of parents, teachers, and administrators was formed to determine the most effective way to address the areas of concern voiced by our student body. We also had a student advisory committee. Some of the members are here today that reviewed and gave feedback on each lesson. These committees were diverse and represented the makeup of our high school. In total, we have close to 40 members on our committees. We were fortunate to have parents and teachers lead subcommittees that created 6 lessons covering topics such as religious discrimination, xenophobia, body image, and race, to name a few. At the conclusion of each lesson, we asked the students to give feedback on what they could do as individuals and what the school could do to combat each one of these issues. Over the course of the year, our students consistently shared that they want to continue these lessons with more in-depth discussions. Our students are committed to making our school, our community, and our world a better place, and we as adults need to start listening to them. With recent events in Northeast Ohio, some making national news, it is evident that there is a need for open, organic, and honest conversations with our students surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is my belief that these lessons are an important component of the district achieving its mission, which is the Solon City Schools, a diverse, collaborative learning community of families, staff, and community members will ensure all students attain the knowledge and skills to succeed in becoming contributing, ethical citizens in a global society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Who would have imagined that my asking to interview Miss Short for one article in my MediaCom class my junior year of high school would have landed me here in a board office at 8 a.m. First off, I would like to thank Mrs. Shane for the opportunity to be here, the Solon High School administration for seeing the diversity, equity, and inclusion lessons through, and my peers for being here. And of course, the wonderful board members for listening. When the school and the PTA conducted their climate survey in the first semester of the 2020 school year, I was unaware that the next steps were to conduct monthly diversity and inclusion seminars. I remember being told a summary of the survey results, astonished at how a community like Solon would yield these sorts of ratings. It was evident that no stone was left unturned to find out the true climate of SHS. Though this was a year unlike any other, I personally believe that the lessons were still as useful as ever. It got people talking, as it was meant to do. I was fortunate to have healthy discussions regarding the lessons with whomever I chose, others not so much. I've often heard of students from various racial backgrounds say that they don't need the lessons in general because it has nothing to do with them. As saddening as it was to hear, it just proves how much we need these influential lessons. We live in an age where we're not just talking about the topics within these lessons, but myself and other students included are an embodiment of some, if not most, of these topics as well. I know of and know an abundance of students who are grateful for these lessons because through simple discussion in the classroom, it gave them a sense of solidarity among other students who felt the same. Moderated by our teachers, with the participants being the students, beautiful conversations were held, at least in my classroom. Though there are times, more often than not, one topic was discussed more than others due to the nature of the classroom, awareness was brought to these topics, just as these lessons were designed to. Now, nobody is saying that these lessons are perfect, but with great attention to detail and a little bit more oil on the wheels, the DEI lessons will almost never fail the community of Solon High School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I get your name? Nah.
My name is Amara.
Thank you.
AMARA.
Hi, my name is Nandana Ahuja, and I live on 7585 Stockwood Drive. Before I start, I would like to say that these are my opinions, and I only speak for myself. I'm a recent graduate of Solon High School, and I was also a member of the Student Advisory Council. I believe that our school needs the diversity and inclusion lessons because I personally learned a lot from them. Even though I didn't necessarily agree with everything done, these lessons were still important in bringing awareness to important issues that I'd never learned about in school. If I wanted to learn about any of the issues presented, I would have to look them up myself. And as we all know, we can't expect high school students to look up everything that they might need to know for college. These lessons were important in bringing awareness to many issues, and I went into lessons thinking I knew a lot and still learned from what was presented. Also, these lessons were impactful as a senior since we hadn't learned anything about being inclusive since freshman year in freshman mentoring. The most important part of these lessons were the discussions. I feel like after having these discussions in a safe space, I would feel more comfortable having these discussions in my future where the discussion wasn't moderated. Even if the discussions were, even if the topic did not affect me personally, I learned many different perspectives that widened my view on the issue. I was fortunate enough to have many of these discussions in a safe space where I knew the teacher and my classmates. In these classes, we spoke a lot and we learned from each other. However, I had a few lessons where students weren't engaged, maybe because they weren't comfortable with the students or even because they didn't know the teacher. If the discussions could be held each period, even if it was just for 10 minutes, I think every student could learn something, because in all of my classes, I learned so much from my peers. I feel like the classrooms are more safer because of these discussions and because everybody was willing to learn from each other. The most successful lessons were the ones where there were testimonials and students gave community input, which obviously gave students like me a broader view on the concept. If every lesson could include student and community input, I believe that these lessons would be 10 times more impactful. This year was especially difficult for diversity and inclusion lessons since we had them online. However, my teachers who did make an effort to hold meaningful discussions did, in my opinion, hold successful ones. Obviously, there will always be opposition to DEI lessons, but I'm sure, as the board has heard plenty of, but we need to have these lessons because they're important and informative. Thus, I believe that the diversity and inclusion lessons need to continue in the future.
Hello, my name is Xiaohui Liu. I live in 6128 Sugaring Highlands. I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. The first one already graduated this year, one entering high school, the other still in Parkside. And I didn't prepare anything, and that's how I'm unfamiliar with this event. Michelle informed me that we have the chance to talk. I don't have a lot to say. One thing I do want to let the Board of Education know is that I'm very proud to be a Solon parent, especially for the past 2 years. I was invited to be on the Inclusion Committee for Solon High School, and I helped them work with the lessons that offered to the Solon High School. I have been talking with a lot of my friends live in Cleveland community, not in Solon, but in Orange and in Chagrin Falls, a lot of the Chinese, Asian community parents. I told them how proud I am of these lessons. I'm proud that Solon is the leader in piloting these lessons to let the kids learn and at least create awareness and education of these issues and events. Recently, one of the Solon High School students formed a online discussion about this topic. They invited me as a panelist. A couple of questions they asked me strike me the most. One of them is that, how do you think we as students, we as community can help with this the diversity and inclusion issue? One solution that I brought up over and over again is education. Only through education that we can help this community to move forward. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Fred, we're going to continue on.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Hi, my name is Ahuja. I live on 7585 Stockwood Drive. Before I begin, I would like to state that these words are my own and reflect my own opinions, but let's just be blunt with this. America has had a really long struggle with acceptance and inclusion, and as a result, the nation has often been plagued by major problems in our society. The diversity and equity and inclusion lessons so far have covered essential topics, ranging from how to be kind with your words and actions, how to be respectful of our differences rather than prejudiced, understanding the shortcomings of classism, accepting religious differences, how to accept body image in a world of social media, how to empathize with those who have disabilities, and understanding the implications of xenophobia and racist ideologies. Something I have said time and time again is that I believe the only way we can fix major problems is by first making people aware of them. The topics I have just listed out for you are not political, they are not partisan, and they are not unrealistic to uphold. The principles I listed are simply how someone can act like a good, decent human being. With that being said, although these lessons had good intentions from the very beginning, they often fail to capture everyone's attention in school. This is certainly a limitation of the virtual hybrid format that we had this past school year, but I know that when sitting in a classroom environment, students are more engaged with whatever is going on. These lessons could certainly have some improvement, but it's important to understand that these were their first iterations. With more testimonials, student engagement, and the return to in-person instruction, these lessons will continue to thrive, expand, and make a positive difference. Diversity is a beautiful thing, but Solon as a community is lucky and privileged to be as diverse as we are. However, that diversity has to be backed up by inclusivity. These lessons primarily encourage an inclusive environment where once we understand how to be a better person, we can be better at accepting and actually including others. These lessons encourage these principles, and I firmly believe they are beneficial to the environment at Solon High School and the entire district. They only strive to improve our school and community environments. They teach fundamental information, which is important, and they should continue to educate students in our growing, more accepting, diverse world. As the only student here, I believe, who is a rising senior or a student at Solon High School, I understand that these lessons need to continue, and I understand just how important they are. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Angad Dillon. I reside at 7464 Wellington Drive. As a recent high school graduate, I still remember the day when the climate survey results were released 2 years ago. It was all anyone could talk about. It was shocking because it revealed I wasn't alone in facing the problems that existed at our school. Solon is an almost perfect school district to many, but that survey chipped away at that notion of perfection as many saw the sheer number of grave issues that were faced by an unnecessarily high number of students. Listening to the lessons and the discussion they generate has given me hope that the environment where students spend 7 hours a day for 180 days a year is a place they feel as welcome and comfortable as possible. The lessons have focused on a whole host of issues from body shaming, academic stress, to xenophobia, but there's one I remember the most. Throughout all 4 years, I've heard people use the word bungalow as a synonym for the R word, and to be honest, I regretfully recall myself using it as a freshman. It wasn't because I wanted to be hurtful. It's because I didn't know how insulting it was. The origin of the word comes from the nickname for the breakfast cafe that was run by our special needs students at the high school. The cafe was informally called the Breakfast Bungalow, and the word bungalow was casually used by students, not knowing it as a degrading insult to our classmates. When I realized this, I stopped using it immediately, but I still heard it through our classrooms and hallways. This year, during our lesson on ableism, I sat there and watched the special education teacher show us the gravity of using such a word. You could hear the pain and anger it caused her to hear her students be insulted and undervalued throughout the very place they came to learn every day. I know there were countless students, good people, that learned the true meaning of the word that day and would never speak it and repeat it again after that lesson. Solon is a diverse district, but that diversity hasn't been taken advantage of. There exists at the fundamental level a lack of awareness regarding a host of issues. These lessons are imperative in bringing input from all parts of our student population with the kind of diversity which isn't easily found outside of school. I am a Sikh, a religious minority many don't know about despite being the 6th largest religion in the world. We were never part of the curriculum when we learned about world religions in 6th grade and barely discussed in regular world history classes. My high school experience consisted of amazing opportunities and a great education, coupled with incessant jokes about 9/11 or being called an Islamic terrorist. I've done my best to educate others. Most people are just unaware of the gravity of their misunderstandings. My worry is for those who've never said it to my face, those who go uneducated, filled with their misconceptions into the world out there. The lesson we had regarding religious diversity helped step towards bridging that gap of uninformedness. The goal of an educational institution, in my mind, is to prepare kids for the real world. And as Solon has always done, never setting for the bare minimum, these diversity and inclusion lessons help educate students beyond just calculus and the formula for methane, and I hope this district is a place of more comfort and diversity that is actually taken advantage of, as I've tried to make it be for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second. Mine is on my phone. Sorry about that. My name is Nigel Gore, and I reside at 5625 Elm Hill Drive. I would like to thank all of you for allowing for me to have the opportunity to speak today. In regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, something that is very dear to my heart. Over my 4 years at Solon High School, I took part in student council and many other boards that allowed for me to get a gauge of how to embrace people for who they are, what they are at Solon High School. I am here to encourage the board to continue to allow for D&I programs to thrive within the high school. While we all know that the district is diverse within itself, we don't exactly see that diversity within the faculty and administrators within our school. So I feel that with the D&I programs, we're allowed to bridge that gap. They are allowed to learn different ethnicities, religions, and sexualities, and they get to truly understand who the student body is so that they're able to bridge that gap and understand who we are. Through D&I programs as a student, I was able to learn the true meaning of bungalow. I myself had never quite used the phrase, but I just remember teachers saying, hey, don't say that, due to me having a lack of understanding for what it meant. I also feel that throughout the past year, we've seen a lot of race tension within our country. This can be incredibly complicating for students at Solon High School, as they may not know what's going on in the world. It gives us a true understanding of who we are and how to embrace our diversity. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, there will be another opportunity, or we'll still have another opportunity later in the meeting.
We will.
This is the time that you might all appreciate or not, but if you would like to leave, we're going to continue with our business meeting, and if you would all like to, it's perfectly fine if everyone would like to leave, and if you'd like to stay, that's wonderful, but if you'd like to leave, please feel free to get up to leave.
Thank you.
Good to see you. As I said, there will be another opportunity for public comment later in the meeting. Moving into the Treasurer's Report, item A1, approval of minutes. Recommended motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 10 and the special meeting of May 27, 2001. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Moses,
Second.
second by Mr. Patton. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, Mr. Pacano, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Clapp?
Yes. Item A2, approval of bills. Recommended motion to approve the payment of bills totaling $1,396.63 is noted in enclosure A2. Motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, I would again like to remind the board that to hang on to the happy thoughts of these low bills.
Yeah, I'm liking this one. yeah.
Because as you can see, the work has started progressing at our buildings.
This yeah, already.
Crews mobilized actually Thursday evening to get a head start on the work. Mike Heckman and his team have really mobilized everybody, worked through all the supply shortages and things that this past year have caused, and we're ready to go to finish the buildings on schedule for the start of the next school year.
It's going to be an expensive summer, is what you're telling us.
It will be.
Within budget.
Right.
Always within budget, under if we can make it.
Absolutely. That's great.
Good. Any other additions or anything else? Mr. Pacano?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Concludes our Treasurer's Report. Moving into the Superintendent's Report. Item B1, Administrative, Director, and Supervisory Contracts. Recommended motion to approve contracts to the following individuals and appropriate salary schedules as is noted in enclosure B1. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, this is the expiration of a majority of our administrative contracts. They were all 3 years ago, prior to, while Joe was still here. He had realigned all of our contracts and moved them into 3-year periods so that he could account for his transition. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we had wanted it to, but these contracts now represent basically a reset of that, and it's a collection of contracts in various years so that we're staggering our administrative contracts so they don't all come due in a single
Same
time.
time. Good, thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B2, administrative hire. Recommended motion to approve a 2-year contract between Antoine Campbell and the Board of Education of the Solon School District as principal of Solon Middle School commencing August 1, 2021 and ending July 31, 2023, as noted in enclosure B2. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, second by Mr. Patton.
Yes,
Hold-
Mrs. Clavin. Mr. Campbell is in the audience with us
In the
today.
house, huh?
He is here today. This is really exciting. It's really exciting. You know, Antoine has been with us since 2008. We actually stole him. He was a building principal in Akron, I believe. He was a building principal in Akron, and we stole him away from there and said, "Come here. We're doing things different. We're really about kids. We're really focused," and that really meshed. I'm really excited to see Antoine build on our vision of Solon Middle School that supports the needs of every student. I know when he moved from our high school to our middle school, you know, this was something that was a thought process of Joe's about the possibility that he would be able to succeed Scott Hatterberg as the principal. He's a strong collaborative leader. He has exceptional interpersonal skills. And I think most importantly, he's a student-first administrator. He's someone who will continue to focus on fostering a real collaborative and supportive school culture. And we're really excited to have him on board as our principal at Solon Middle School.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
Lots of luck to you, Mr. Campbell. Good to see
Look
you.
great.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good. Are there any other questions, comments? Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations, Antoine.
Congratulations.
Is there anything you'd like to say, Antoine? I know it's a little a ways from there, but
No, I'm just really excited and thankful to be able to have the opportunity to lead the building. So definitely looking forward to working with the students, the staff, and community, and continuing our great work here in Solon.
awesome. Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You too can get the pass if you want for the rest of the meeting. Okay.
That was more than
I
a
have
one-
a feeling that you have a lot to do.
That was more than a one-time offer, by the way.
Thank you.
Moving on, item B3, public hearing and consideration of reemployment OPSI. Recommended motion to rehire retired employee Tom Pinizzotto for 1 year as noted in the collective bargaining agreement between the Solon Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, complying with Ohio Revised Code 3307.353. Members of the public are invited to provide input to the board on the issue of reemployment for the above employee. After input, the board will act on the resolution at a future meeting. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Thomas, second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, this is our second meeting for public comment for anybody that cared to weigh in on Mr. Pinzato's rehire. It's part of both statutory and contractual requirements for people that want to rehire. I would like to remind the board that what this enables us to do is keep our employees for an additional year as opposed to additional 5 or 6 years at their most expensive time. So it's a real cost savings for the district and a benefit for the employee.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B4, retire rehire OPSI. Recommended motion to rehire retired employee Richard Alemo for 1 year as noted in the collective bargaining agreement between the Solon Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public School Employees, complying with Ohio Revised Code 3307.353.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton.
Second.
And second by Mr. Heckman.
Yes, this is that third and final meeting from the previous one that we had talked about, where this particular employee will be now rehired by the board
Right.
for another year at again, considerable cost savings.
Good, thank you. Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes, thank you. Item B5, OPSI resignations. Recommended motion to approve the resignations of Holly Becker, aide at Solon High School, Cynthia Bomley, security guard at Roxbury Elementary School, and Alicia Byers, food service at Solon Middle School, effective June 3, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, these individuals are either retiring or taking other opportunities. I know many of them. They will be greatly missed. They were great people,
Longtime
and we
employees.
wish them best.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B6, retirement. Recommended motion to approve the retirement of Karen Yasher, Administrative Assistant for the Solon Board of Education, effective December 31, 2021. Karen has been with the district for 30 years. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Mr. Heckman, second by Mr. Patton. Mr. Bolden?
Yes, this is the ongoing march of change that we have had this year in terms of the number of individuals that we have that have been retiring for us. It has seen the retirement of our technology director, the retirement of our pupil services our pupil services director, several of our secretaries. Well, Karen Yasher has been with us for 30 years. She was Joe's secretary. She is currently my secretary. She's been incredibly helpful to me through what would be politely considered a difficult transition.
Politely.
She's going to be missed a lot, and I really do wish her the best. She's done a great job for us.
Yeah, I do want to recognize Karen. She's been a valued employee of our district for many, many years, and has gone through immeasurable change of late, and it's been difficult for everyone. But we certainly do appreciate everything that she has done for the district in many different capacities, too, along the way. I remember with Debbie Siegel at the old board office. With Debbie Wendell. It just, Karen has, as I said, just been a valued employee of the district, and she will be missed.
Yeah, she's, many people in this room know what a supporter she was of parents and PTA specifically. She was such an instrumental part of so many of the big programming that PTA did. She certainly will be missed, and of course we wish her well in her retirement.
Any other comments?
She's just amazing. She jumped in this year with kindergarten registration, when we needed additional people. She just said, nope, I'm on board for that. She was working with Tammy and doing extra things with Tammy. It was, I have a different style than Joe did. And so as opposed to just saying, well, I'm going to just do what I always did, she's changed up her workflow to really support the building and support me. And it's just, I can't say enough good things about her.
Well, I think we all feel that way. Yes. We will certainly miss Karen in the district as a whole, so. Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Regrettably. Item B7, home instruction tutors, recommended motion to approve Kurt Gilnick and Anna Gasello, I knew that, as home instruction tutors for the 2020-21 school year. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mr. Patton.
Yes, these are home instruction tutors for the last end of the year that were not able to access the curriculum for whatever reason, and these people were approved to provide that individualized instruction that they needed for recovery.
Great, thank you. Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B8, Erica Kasok, recommended motion to approve additional $947.34 to be paid to Erica Kasok for her service as acting principal of Solon High School from February 16, 2021 to March 12, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman, second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, this is for the additional services and time rendered by Mrs. Kasok during that time period.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B9, head soccer coach, recommended motion to hire Mina Shahada as head soccer coach for the 2021-22 school year.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Heckman,
Second.
Mr. Patton, second by Mrs. Moses. Wrong side.
Okay. Close enough.
I thought he was
Close
strong
enough.
as voice.
I was just going to say, going back and forth.
We're really excited to have Mr. Shahada to be our head football coach or soccer coach. There's this show Ted Lasso, so I've got football on my mind. It's soccer. Anyway, he is where he's got a lot of energy, really excited. He was actually a coaching assistant at Akron during their national championship run. He's been a head coach. He's been an assistant coach at the collegiate level as well. He's going to be a spectacular addition, and I think he's really going to be able to pick up where the soccer team left off last year, and they're going to be really successful, and I think he's going to take us far.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Mr. McKenna?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B10, continuing contract. Recommended motion to award a continuing teacher contract to the following individual effective 2021-22 school year, provided all conditions set forth in the collective bargaining agreement are met. Jody Radcliffe. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Moses.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heckman.
Yes, Mrs. Radcliffe is going to be offered a continuing contract. Should she be rehired in the district, she'll be able to have a continuing contract when she comes back. This was supposed to be with our last run. Through a clerical issue, it got added on later. So that's why this is solo.
Great. Thank you. Mr. McKenna?
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B11, limited contracts. Recommended motion to issue limited teaching contracts to the following individuals for the 2021-22 school year, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas, second by Mr. Patton.
Yes, this is part of our hiring process, and we are filling in the gaps in jobs that have come open as the run of bidding goes through. So this group is here. We expect to see several more of these before we have completely staffed for next year.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. McKenna?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B12, non-district pupil activity permits. Recommended motion to approve supplemental contracts to the following individuals as noted in enclosure B12. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mr. Patton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heckman.
Yes, this is the group of individuals that do not work for the school district in a teaching capacity, and they are acting as our coaches and several of our other club advisors. These are all positions that were offered to internal candidates, and we couldn't find internal candidates for them. There are no new positions within this. This is just a group of jobs that needed to be filled for our fall sports and other activities.
Great, thank you.
You know, this pleases me so much to see this, how much we offer our students. I mean, you talk about diversity. We have something for everybody, all of our students in school, extracurricular. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Mr. McKenna?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B13, supplemental contracts. Recommended motion to approve supplemental contracts to the following individuals for the 2021-22 school year as noted in enclosure B13. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Heckman.
These are the partner to the previous agenda item. These are teachers and staff members that are fulfilling those roles as either coaches or curricular support for the fall.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Mr. McKenna?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B14, district certified drivers. Recommended motion, a resolution to approve the following bus drivers for the annual driver certification by the Solon City School District for the 2020-21 school year under OAC 3301-83-06B5. Those two are Colleen Hall and Jasmine McLean. This certifies that said driver is of good moral character, is at least 18 years of age, is physically and otherwise qualified to drive a school bus as required by the rules of the Ohio Department of Education for the Solon City School District for the school year ending 2021. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Moses, seconded by Mr. Patton.
Yes, Ms. Clavin, this is a process that we go through each year. Whenever new drivers come on board, the board is required to certify those drivers. In this particular instance, again, drivers are they are a hot commodity. It's much like housing in Solon. They're hard to find. You really want them.
Yeah, really,
And so
I know.
every time we have an opportunity to get them and they pass all of our background checks and certifications, we want to get them on our agenda as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B15, new hires. Recommended motion to hire the following individuals as teachers for the 2021-22 school year, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Mrs. Thomas?
Second.
Second by Mr. Heckman.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, these are additional filling in of positions and roles that were not filled internally with teachers in terms of getting contracts renewed that were here. So these are all new hires for us. There's a familiar face in here who used to be working for us at one point, and she just came back. So again, once you come, we like to be a destination district, and we're glad to see familiar faces come back. But they've all been checked and verified, and we're excited to have them on board.
Great, good. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B16, policies. Recommended motion to approve the following policies, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton,
Second.
second by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, these are the policies that we had reviewed at last board meeting to go through it. I did want to make a point of talking about policy 2464, gifted education and identification. That policy has had some adjustments that were made to it. At last board meeting, we had a public comment that came in at the end. And in speaking with the individual who wanted to do that public comment virtually, we said in lieu of that, I would talk about the process that went through and how our gifted program has changed. Approximately 2 years ago, we had started with, and I know that you're aware of it, but for the public, a few years ago, the Ohio Department of Education in their Office of Exceptional Children said they wanted to review the policies and the procedures that we were doing in terms of how we serviced our gifted population. According to the state gifted guidelines, we have about 1,400 of our students are identified as gifted. That's a significant portion of our student body. And so we as a district use a differentiation model to address those kids' needs within the classroom. After the state reviewed that process, they said because of the way we trained our teachers, our program wasn't compliant. And so after several rounds of back and forth and communicating with them, we have revamped our teacher training program to better meet the needs of what the Office of Exceptional Children and the Ohio Department of Education is expecting us to do. So part of that process is an expanded identification process so that additional kids are identified as gifted. A significant portion of it is in teacher training. We're working with an educational service center to provide gifted specific training for our teachers so that we will continue to be able to provide the education that we provide in a differentiated model, but meet the compliance standards necessary. We've also revamped our gifted pullout program that was happening in grades 3 and 4 to now being an enrichment program that is open to all kids. So we've changed that program up as well. But I wanted to make sure that I communicated that to everyone so that they were aware of the policy change that happened in here, as well as the steps we're taking to fix that.
Great, thank you.
And I think what happens there is more people are allotted to this program, correct?
That is correct. Every student that is gifted eligible is eligible for the enrichment program. And then once you get to Orchard Middle School, students are allowed to self-select into accelerated classes, and from that point forward, it snowballs into produce wonderful students like these right here. So.
Great. Good, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Bowman? Motion, please. Or, excuse me, vote.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B17, Ohio High School Athletic Association. Recommended motion to approve membership in the Ohio Athletic Association for the 2021-22 school year. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Moses, seconded by Mrs. Thomas.
Yes, Ms. Clavin, this is a perfunctory activity that we do every year that we join, and they use the money, they use our membership fees to help them manage all of the events and playoffs and help us with
Contracts
refs
and
and
things.
so forth.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B18, payment in lieu of transportation. Recommended motion to approve the resolution as stated below, which permits the Solon, the Board of Education, to reimburse parents whose children attend a private school for which it is impractical to transport their children, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 3327.01, providing that boards of education determine whether or not transportation shall be provided to non-public schools within 30 minutes by school bus for district resident children. Payment in lieu of transportation be made to parents of children at a rate established by the State Board of Education. The Solon Board of Education finds it impractical to transport to the non-public schools as listed below, and they are listed below. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heckman.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, this is a process that we go through. If a school is within 30 minutes from here, we either provide transportation to that location, or based on the number of students or how the other intricacies of traveling, if we deem it impractical to transport to those schools, those individuals that apply for it will be able to get reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B19, authorization to bid. To authorize the business manager to advertise and secure bids for the Solon High School dive pool repair project. May I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses.
Yes, Mrs. Clavin, our pool was built in 1981.
Whoa.
So our pool system was built in 1981. It underwent a major renovation to the lap pool about 15 or 20 years ago when they had to make it higher for updated safety regulations to go through that. And the dive pool has remained mostly untouched since 1981. So that's about 40 years. And we have seen significant issues that need to be fixed with the walls and the pump room to make sure that it is safe and compliant. At this time, we're going to secure bids for it so that we can evaluate what our next steps will be in order to repair it.
So 40 years is all you get out of it?
I know, just 40 years.
Just 40 years, I mean, come on.
Well, when you think about it and you think about like what we spent on roofs this year, and those roofs, some of those roofs are 30 years old, they're 25 years old, 30 years old. It is the money that we spend and the money that we use, we try to be really good stewards of the community's money. And those monies that we're spending on these things, sometimes you don't see them. You won't see the roof. You won't necessarily, the pool doesn't necessarily look that much different or better, but there are things that happen in the background that keep all of our kids safe and keep the programs and services that we have running. And you know, it's the job that Mike and his team are doing to make sure that our buildings are running and operating the way that they need to. You don't notice it, but it's really appreciated.
Well, let's always remember too, the support of our community members, because it's permanent improvement levies that have been approved along the way that make it possible for our district to be able to do these continuing repair projects and to be able to react appropriately when things come up, that we're able to do this. So again, we always are appreciative to the community of Solon for the ability to do these projects. Any other questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. Item B20, tuition reimbursements. Recommended motion to approve tuition reimbursements to the following individuals, and they are listed below. Many of them are listed below.
It's that time of year.
And still listed below. There we go. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Patton.
Second.
Second by Mr. Heckman.
Mrs. Clavin, these were previously approved, and they do meet our district criteria.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Buchanan?
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Moses?
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin?
Yes. That concludes our very lengthy business items for this meeting. Moving into information items and other reports to the board. C1 is building usage report. All outside organizations must request a building permit to utilize any district facilities. Enclosure C1 identifies the permits that were approved. Item C2, Ohio School Boards Association awards and recognitions. Mr. Bolden.
Yes, I have 3 of those today.
Well, there you
The first one is for Solon Middle School. This is the Northeast Region Ohio School Boards Association 2020 award for Solon Middle School being a National Blue Ribbon. So the Ohio School Boards they're basically giving us an award for getting the award that we got to be a blue ribbon.
works.
It really speaks to, the important thing about this is it speaks to people notice what we do and how we do it. A lot of eyes are on our district because of the amazing work that are being done in our buildings every single day with every single student. And this is just another example of that. I'm excited and proud of that team that they were able to accomplish this to become a blue ribbon school, and I'm just really excited for them. So that is our first one. So one of the things, and I know you guys don't like this, but I'm going to do it anyway. One of the things that is really amazing about this district is its consistency in leadership. Our district is one that is successful as it is because we have strong leaders. We have people like Debbie Siegel, we have people like Tim Picana, we have people like our administrators who are about every student every single day. But one of those things that makes our district especially unique is our board. Our board doesn't do this for the money. They don't do it. They don't do it for the power. They don't do it because they enjoy people emailing them and calling them constantly. You do it for the kids. You do it because you care about our kids, and that consistency that we have had is one of the real strong reasons why we're as successful as we are. We have 2 awards today. The first award is for Julie Clavin, who has served on the district as a board member for 15 years. So Julie, you have worked, and it's actually been longer than that, I think, but I think they give it at certain intervals. That's a long time for board members. When I talk to colleagues across the state of Ohio, that's a long tenure to be a board member. It's only eclipsed in this particular instance by Marilyn Thomas,
I just did say.
who
I did not know
I will
Lincoln.
pass
just
this
wanted to
down
know
the
that.
line here. 'Cause
who is earning her award from the Ohio School Boards Association for 45 years of service. So,
pretty amazing.
to put that into perspective, Marilyn
I am but a child.
Marilyn was actually here before our pool was built. So that type of long-serving leadership is not something that can ever be minimized. And I just wanted to thank both of you, and the Ohio School Boards Association wanted to thank both of you for your very long and illustrious service. So thank you guys.
I loved every minute of it, believe me.
It's been our collective privilege. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, it's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 et al. in this room.
Who all spoke articulately and famously in public comment, and we certainly are impressed with each and every one of you. All right, so then we're moving into C3.
Next year's plans. We are, and Mr. Ahuja, you will be glad to hear, we are going back to school in person next year. So we will be all in for all of our students 5 days a week. Unless you're in preschool, it's 4 days a week. Yes, there's many claps, many sighs of excitement. We are thrilled ourselves
Every parent
because
on the planet.
we know that the best place for students to learn is in school. I think our teachers did an admirable job this year. They really did.
Amazing.
I think they pulled off one of the most complicated methods of virtual learning, that of teaching synchronously, both to students at home while students were in school. To do this across all grade levels from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade, doing this was nothing short of amazing. They did an incredible job, but they're tired. And I know that, I know our families would prefer to have the kids in. I know we would like to be in. For that reason, that is why our primary mode of instruction for next year will be in-person learning. That being said, Debbie Siegel and her team have been evaluating alternative programs for our students that don't have the ability to attend in person. Either they have a particular health issue or some other specific reason that they would want to do that. For those students, we are going to be contracting with an outside service called Edmentum. The Edmentum Ed Option Learning Academy it's a virtual school, and that school enables you to get your core subjects as well as some electives throughout the day delivered by teachers that are aligned to Ohio State standards, so that our students will be able to continue their education until such time as they feel or they're able to attend school in person. For our elementary students, those are our students ages K through, I want to say it's K through 6. Was it K through 6 or K through 8? It's K through 6. They have to commit, I apologize. They have to commit to at least a minimum of a quarter with the Ed Options Academy. And for our high school students, it's a year commitment to do that. The reason why we are doing that has to do with the way our curriculums align. A elementary school and a high school, because of the way they teach, sometimes they won't teach the same things at the same time. So if there's a particular concept you're learning in science, at a certain time, you wouldn't be able to access that if you came mid-year. You may have already learned that or not learned something that you would need to learn. So in order to keep it aligned, we're going either by quarter or by year to help manage that. To this point, I think we've had 5 total students that have opted for, or 5 total students between 4 families that have opted for virtual instruction to this point. There's a survey that's out there for people to apply to that. That survey will close on June 17th.
This is the
14th or the 17th?
14th.
The
This is
14th.
Families have until the 14th. Well, we've changed dates a couple of times.
We have.
Okay.
As with all things COVID, things are in flux as we go through that. A lot of people are asking about, well, what is next year going to look like? The answer to that is complicated, because a lot of it is going to be dependent on what the health department asks us to do. I know that from the beginning, we're going to work to maximize space between students as much as possible. In terms of what those distances are, those will all be dependent on the number of students in a given class, but we're going to maximize for that. We will be going back to traditional lunch periods, although we're expanding the lunch periods in many of our buildings so that we can have a fewer number of students in the lunchroom so that we can spread them out. We will not be using desk shields. The CDC has, as with all things science, it continues to evolve and our understanding continues to evolve. Desk shields are not seen as an optimal deterrent for the spread. And again, with massive vaccinations that have been going on, we're at about 80% of our staff are vaccinated. I don't know the specific numbers on our eligible students that have been vaccinated, but in terms of the numbers that have reported to us that they were going to get vaccinated or signed up for our clinics, we're pushing well over 60-70% of our students that are eligible to getting vaccinated. So as more vaccines go through, it will be able to become safer and safer. So again, we're really excited to have all the students back next year. I know our teachers are excited about it, our administration's excited about it, and especially our parents are excited to have their kids back in school next year, and we're excited to start. More information will be coming in the coming months as we get more information from the state about other health and safety guidelines to follow for next year.
Great, good. Thank you.
Mr. Bowler, may I just ask
absolutely,
a
go ahead.
question? Just for clarification, let's say there's a student who would be entering the 12th grade and they go through the Edmonton Ed Options Academy. At the end of that time, would they graduate from Solon High School?
That is a spectacular question. It is. We've had probably 3 questions so far from families, and that question is the one that is most oft asked. If you go to the Edmentum Academy, you will be able to graduate as a Solon graduate. You will be able to participate in our graduation ceremony, provided you meet all the necessary requirements for graduation.
Will they be able to participate in extracurricular activities?
They can participate in extracurricular activities, but they cannot participate in co-curricular activities. So football, yes. Band, no. Because those activities happen in classes,
have to be in the classroom.
you need to be physically in the classroom to do it. And we aren't doing a you're in for one subject and out for the rest of the subjects. You're either an in-person learner or you're a virtual learner through the Ed Options Academy. So co-curricular activities will not be available to virtual students, but all extracurricular activities will be. That includes speech and debate. That includes football, all the other sports. Anything that is outside of the school day is still available to those students.
Thank you.
Good question, Mr. Patton. That concludes our information items. Moving into board reports and other committee reports. Mrs. Siegel, anything additionally?
No, Mrs. Clavin.
Mr. Bolden?
I did have one thing that I wanted to say in regards to the public comments that we had today, the many emails that we have gotten. We've gotten many emails both in support of our DEI initiatives. We've also gotten emails that would like us to do our DEI initiatives differently. And I want to say that I appreciate all the comments that were shared today, all the emails that were sent to us that I've shared with you that have come through it, even the ones who we may have a difference of opinion about how to implement that. It's important that we engage our community. I know one of our staff members had mentioned, or one of our speakers mentioned our strategic plan, and they even read it, our mission statement. Every decision we make in this district ties directly to our strategic plan and our mission. And that strategic plan and mission was developed over the course of decades with a broad representation of families, of staff, and of community members. That mission statement that we have, it's clear. We're supposed to educate our students to be successful and ethical citizens in a global society. Families choose Solon and Glen Willow because of our schools and because of our diversity. Our district is unique in that we excel, not just academically, but in athletics, in the arts, in our extracurricular activities. There are few districts that accomplish what we do at our size with our diversity. This is because at the core of our values are the belief that each individual has inherent worth and dignity, that education empowers people, and that diversity enriches our community. We support each Solon School student as an individual, regardless of their race, of their religion, of their gender, of their sexual orientation, of their ability, or their socioeconomic status. We do that by cultivating respect and understanding. Yes, families have a primary responsibility for the growth and development of their children. But what our children learn happens through a partnership of the student, of the home, of the school, and of the community. Our mission is a commitment to each student. It serves as the embodiment of our loftiest ideals, and it takes work and effort to achieve. Throughout this entire process, and diversity is nothing new in our district, throughout this entire process, we're going to continue to engage our families as our partners. We have asked for input from families. Every person that I've spoken to, every person that has come in and to ask, we always offer up, would you like to be part of this? Would you like to participate? The input and support of our families working together with students, teachers, and staff is crucial to our success in fostering a safe and nurturing and supportive environment where learning thrives for all of our students. I just wanted to let you guys know that's where we're coming from when we're doing this. We're about all kids, and we're a diverse community of learners, and we need to embrace that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bolden. Mrs. Moses.
Thank you to everyone who came today. I think we're better when we hear from the community and get everyone's opinions. Special thank you to the students. I think you all are a perfect representation of what we do best in Solon, and your eloquence and passion came through very loud and clear. So thank you for getting up at 7:30 or whatever time you got up to be here. We appreciate your attendance.
Mr. Patton, anything additionally?
If I may, to keep it short, I would like to echo or repeat what Mrs. Moses said, and I would especially also like to single out the student population. Saw many of you on a Thursday in the rain, windy day over at the football field. By the way, Mr. Bolden, I thought that went very well.
Spectacular.
Yes.
Spectacular.
Lots of luck to all of you who are moving on to the college level. We expect to read and hear many good things about you in the future. Thanks so much.
Mr. McCann, anything additionally?
No, thank you, Mrs. Clavin.
No, just to ditto what my fellow board member said and what Fred said. Couldn't be more proud that you came to the meeting and represented your feelings, and that's about it.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here. You know, the current students, and I see that we have a college student here as well. Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Oh, no, I'm a junior next fall at Solon.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of your. Okay, I'm thinking. Of,
Yeah, you know.
I'm thinking.
We can't tell who you
Yeah, I
are.
can't tell. I guess because you look just like your sister.
With a mask on.
So, but yeah, thank you everyone for coming in and letting us hear from you because that's what makes this work.
Great. I think everyone's pretty much said what has to be said, but again, it's the dialogue in this community, and it's the dialogue that we have, and the ongoing dialogue that we continue to have that's going to provide us with the understanding that we need to work through some of these issues. I know as for the board, we are continually committed to the highest quality of education every day for the students of Solon and Glen Willow. And as Mr. Bolden mentioned when he talked about just our service as board members, but our job and what we do is put the needs of students first, every day, every student. And I know we can see that you all share some of those same values. This is our second opportunity for public comment. If there's anything that someone didn't speak earlier and would like to speak now, you're welcome to go to the microphone. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Thomas.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Moses. Mr. Buchanan, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Moses.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Clavin.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for being here.